Hello and welcome to this webinar by Philanthropia. We'll give it another 3-4 minutes to give other people a chance to join, and then we will get started. Thank you. Hello and welcome again to this webinar by Philanthropia about developing a project plan to also develop a successful proposal. My name is Eva Wieners. I'm from Germany, and I will be your trainer today. This is a repeat webinar because we had to postpone the last one because unfortunately I had a COVID, so you might still hear it in my voice. So I really hope I can get through this hour. Otherwise, yeah, I have my water, I have my coffee, so I think I'll be fine. Thanks again for waiting all this time and joining us today. We're really happy to be talking about this topic with you. So I have a presentation prepared that I will go through with you, and afterwards we have time for questions. So if you have a question, you can just type it into the comment box, and I will make sure to get to it. Otherwise, again, we have time for questions at the end, so you can also post your question again then to make sure that I see it and that I can go through it. Yeah. Philanthropia is a consulting company. We do offer a lot of online training. We have many of these free webinars. We also have a couple of free online courses, and we have paid online courses on our platform, philanthropia.org. And if you haven't done so already, I recommend you check out what we have to offer there, because we have many, many interesting topics about fundraising, project management, prospect research, etc., all aspects of it that can be very beneficial for small and big NGOs and for whichever position you're working in. I think we can just jump right in and get started. And get started with the presentation. So I hope you can all see my screen now. After the webinar, we will share further information with you. We'll share the presentation and further links, as well as some of the resources that I will be talking about. So don't worry about taking too many notes. Obviously, if you want to take some notes, then do so, but we will also share resources with you in the end. Okay, so we can just jump right in. Today's topic is developing a project plan as a base for a successful proposal, because those two, many NGOs confuse them. Many don't have a project plan, just start right off with a proposal. And I think it's really important to understand why the first one is so important, why you need it, and how they can actually complement each other. My name, again, is Eva Wieners. I'm from Germany. I used to live and work in Nepal from 2012 to 2019. I also did my PhD there in geography, and my topic was sustainability of development cooperation projects. So that's a topic very close to my heart. I also worked with NGOs in Europe and in South America in fundraising and organizational development. And since 2018, I'm working with Philanthropia as a trainer, consultant, and content developer for the websites and the training platform. Okay, so we can just get started. Today, we will be talking about the project plan. So we'll start by addressing the question, what is a project plan? What does it contain, etc.? Why do you have one? Next one, yeah, why is a project plan necessary? So why do you actually have to spend the time to develop one? Then we'll talk about the most important parts of a project plan. Then the difference between a project plan and a proposal, because that is also very important to understand in which circumstances you need the one and in which circumstances you need the other, and how does it actually help with your proposal, because it's not two different things. One actually is based on the other, and there are many, many connections. And if you have a good project plan, then you don't have to do so much work for your proposal. So we'll see how it actually helps with proposal writing and thus also with fundraising. So what is a project plan? A project plan is a comprehensive plan about what you want to do and how. It describes the project you're planning with as much detail as necessary. So it's basically your roadmap to knowing what your project is all about. So what does that mean? It's actually a document that kind of takes your project idea to actually being a real project. I've met many small NGOs, people that work for small NGOs, that have started small NGOs, grassroots NGOs, that have amazing ideas. They know what they want to do, they know what the community needs, etc., and they're just full of ideas. But when you talk to them, they actually never formulated a project plan. They never formulated a real project out of it. It's just ideas. It's many things they want to do, many things they can do, but nothing really concrete. And that's the difference. When you sit down and write a project plan, write down everything, then you do have a roadmap. Then you do know what you have to do. You know how much money you will need for it. You know how much time you will need for it. You know which activities you have to implement to achieve your objectives. So that is the difference. That's what a project plan does. It actually really shows you the road to success. It shows you the road to how you're actually going to be able to implement all those ideas that you might have, and all those initiatives, etc. So it forces you to sit down, to think about the project, maybe also decide if it's realistic at all, or maybe you have to adjust it, etc. It forces you to get back to earth, to put your feet on the ground and actually get to realistic planning, which is really helpful. Why do you need a project plan? There's different scenarios where you actually might need a project plan. So usually when you develop a project plan, it's for planning purposes within your own NGO. Sometimes it's even the very first step to convince your own NGO, because maybe you have a great idea that you want to implement. You have an idea on how to work with a specific community that you know very well, maybe your own community. You have, an idea that is slightly different. You want to propose something new. So you need a project plan to convince the people in your own NGO, because they might be skeptical. Maybe they don't want to change. Maybe they don't want to start anything new, etc. Or maybe you have a specific budget within your NGO and you have to compete for it. So that's when you write a project plan, a document that really describes what you want to do, how you want to do it, etc. So that is one reason to write a project plan. But in general, like I said before, it's basically what takes you from the dreaming stage to the actual planning stage. Because when you write down exactly what you want to do, you have to become much more concrete. If you just have an idea, you can still include everything. You can go this direction, that direction, and think of so many things. But if you really have to boil it down to one project that you eventually want to apply for, or that you do want to implement, that you have people that you want to work on it, etc., you really need to be precise, and you really need to kind of limit yourself a little bit to make it more realistic. So then you also have to think about eventualities and challenges, which is really important, because if you don't think about these things, and if you don't realistically look at the situation as it is, you might be planning a project that cannot be implemented, that is doomed to fail, because you're not thinking of everything that could happen, other factors that might influence your project success, etc. It also really helps you to get organized, because if you want to implement a project, if you want to move along, then you do need to know how many people need to work on this project. What is the budget that we need? What's the timeline? How long would this take? Is this realistic to approach our objective in one project? Do we maybe need an entire program? Do we need several projects? Does this fit within our own theory of change, etc.? All these questions will be answered if you write a good project plan, if you take the time, sit down, think about your project plan, and it really helps you to get organized, because then you will see, oh, we need 3 people, but now we just have 2, so we need to apply for more money. Or the budget is huge, so yes, we need a new grant. Or maybe you will see, oh, this is actually possible to do within our existing budget, because it's not that big. Or you will see, well, this is going to be like a multi-year thing, so we have to approach it completely differently. It really helps you to get organized, to get the overview of the resources that you need, overview of the time that you would need to implement this, and then it will inform your next decisions. And it also forces you to gather all this information. As long as you're just like planning and thinking into thin air, you don't need to know exactly how much the things cost that you're planning with. You don't need to know exactly how long it will take, etc. But once you write down this plan, you need to gather all that information. And again, it will give you a much more realistic framing for your project, which will help you to plan better projects, and to then in the end also write better proposals, because today we're talking about the connections between the two, and that is the main thing. You will also see, maybe you've already attended one of our webinars about developing a strategy, for example. Oh, I'm just reading one of the FAQs. Sorry that I'm talking too fast. Okay, I will try to talk slower. I'm sorry. It's just my style of talking, but I will try to talk slower, so then maybe people can catch up. Maybe you have attended one of our webinars about developing a strategy, and one of the things that we always stress there is to do good donor research, to develop a strategy, etc. You need to know where you want to go, which means that you need to understand how much money you will need for a specific project. And if you don't have a project plan, if you don't develop a budget connected to that, then you will not know how much money to apply for. So you are missing some crucial information that will feed into your donor research, into your prospect research, into your strategy development, etc. So all of this is very important to actually make your planning stronger, not only for your implementation, for your projects per se, but also for your fundraising, for your strategy development, etc. So when we're talking about the proposal again, you don't necessarily need a project plan to write a proposal, but it really helps. Because if you've already written a project plan and you've developed the budget, you have thought about the timeline, you know exactly the activities that you want to implement, etc., you can obviously use all of that information to write a good proposal and to include it there. Because all of the parts we will see later when we look at it in detail, many of the parts, not all of them, but many are very, very similar. The parts of a project proposal and the parts of a project plan. So you can use a lot of that information and reuse it when you want to write the proposal. So it actually really helps you. And again, also, I've just said that before, but it's really crucial. When you go out and look for a potential donor research, prospect research, to find someone who can potentially fund your project, you need to have a very good idea about what your project looks like. You need to know the budget, because some donors just give small grants, some donors just give big grants. You need to know who to address. If you don't know how much your project will cost, then you don't know who to research. So that's an issue. The same goes for activities. If you just know what you want to achieve, but you have not really planned out how you want to achieve that objective, you also don't know which donors to research, because some donors might support the goal of education, the overall goal, the objective, but some of them will then go on and fund building school, building like a physical building, a school. Others will only fund training. If you don't know which how you want to go about it, then you also don't know who to research. So this really, really is crucial information that feeds into your donor research process. And if you have written all of this down in a project plan that everybody has access to, that everybody can read in your organization, so everybody's on the same page, that will be extremely helpful for your donor research. And then you can use and reuse all this information when you finally write the proposal. So just make sure that if you are thinking about writing a project plan, that you do this first, because so much of this information will actually feed into your fundraising process and will make it much more effective and much more successful. So now we're talking about what goes into a project plan, which you will probably notice very quickly is similar to what goes into a project proposal. If you've attended one of our webinars about proposal writing, or have read anything about it, you will notice quickly that many of the parts are very similar. So you basically cover the W questions that we all learned at school. We start by where. Where is your project supposed to take place? So the country, the community, the district, whatever might apply in your area of work. Where does it happen? So you have to cover that in your project plan. Then obviously you have to explain why. Why does it have to happen? Which in the project proposal would be the background or the justification. So why is it necessary? What is the problem that you want to solve? What is the difficult situation that a community might find itself in that you want to solve, that you want to help with? So this is what you focus on in this part of the project plan. Then you talk about what you want to achieve. What is the change that you want to achieve? Those would be the objectives, the goals. What is the objective of the project that you are planning here? Do you want to end hunger? Do you want to improve nutrition? Do you want to make the school attendance higher, etc.? Those are things that you can or that you should and have to describe in this section. Then you talk about who are project participants, who is going to benefit from your program, your project, and who is going to work on it, who are direct beneficiaries, indirect beneficiaries, all those terms that you know from proposal writing, meaning indirect beneficiaries or direct beneficiaries, people who directly work with your project, so who are directly involved, taking part in the training, etc. Indirect meaning who then benefit from the knowledge, the skills that people have acquired in your trainings, that benefit from new infrastructure that you've built, etc. So who is going to benefit, who is going to work with your project? But here you can also describe in a section who is going to work on it from your organization, because that's going to be interesting if you present to an internal audience who is supposed to work on the project, who are the people involved. Then we get to the how. How do you want to achieve the what, the objectives, the goal that you have defined? Because there's always different ways of achieving the same goal. No? You have to keep that in mind. Again, the example with education. If you want to enhance education, enhance school attendance rates, whatever it might be, that's your goal, but you can achieve that by different means. You can build a new school if there's a lack of buildings, of infrastructure. You can also train teachers. You could train parents to make sure they understand how important it is to send their kids to school. You could supply a school bus. You could supply school uniforms, etc. There's different strategies, different ways to go about this goal. So this is what you describe here. How exactly? So you can define strategies, how you want to achieve something, and specific activities that you want to do within those strategies. So do you want to build something? Do you want to conduct a training? How do you want to conduct this training? How many people are supposed to take part, etc.? You can be detailed here. No? How do you want to achieve the goals that you have defined for yourself, for your project? Then you need a timeline of some sort. It doesn't have to be a definite timeline that says we'll start July 1st and we'll end October 31st, but you could say month 1, month 2, month 3, especially if you're just proposing this, if you're still trying to convince other people in your NGO, then you might have to keep it that way. but some kind of timeline so that it's clear, is this going to be a project that will take 3 months, a year, 3 years, 5 years, etc. So a timeline that makes this clear. There's different formats for timelines that you can use. Just a linear, very simple timeline. You can also develop a work plan, which might make sense when you're presenting to an internal audience that already has responsibilities assigned. So then you could say, okay, colleague A has to do this, colleague B has to do this, so that people can see very quickly how much personnel is going to be involved in this project and who is going to have responsibilities. And you can also add specific tasks here and milestones in between what needs to be achieved by when, etc. And then you have the budget. And also the budget is important. Again, sometimes when you develop a project plan, it's in the very first stage. So you might think, maybe I don't need to put so much detailed information. Maybe we don't need a proper budget. But it is crucial that you at least know a ballpark number of how much this project is going to cost. Because if you're presenting to an internal audience, your board, your superiors, etc., they will want to know how much this is going to cost. And again, if you want to use this for fundraising purposes and want to work with the project plan to develop a proposal, to use it for donor research, use it for your strategy development, you do need a ballpark number, because again, it's a huge difference if you're looking for a donor who gives a $10,000 grant, or if you're looking for a donor that gives a $100,000 grant. So you kind of need to know how much you need which direction you want to go into. So if you have all those parts, you have a document that really covers your most important basis for this project, and you have a good project plan that explains nicely what you want to do. What is the project that you are suggesting, that you are proposing? So to start with that, you should ask yourself a couple of questions, because you will need some outside information to be able to write this project plan. So you have to ask yourself where you are in the field that or in the community that you want to implement this project. So what information do you already have? Often, if you've worked with this community, with this kind of project in the past, you will have a lot of information that you need for the project plan already. So what kind of information do you have? Do you know statistics? Do you know any other numbers about this community, like about the problems? Do you have case studies? Do you have background information, etc.? Which points are clear and which are unclear? Maybe also this information that you do have will show you that there's a couple of areas where you don't have enough information, where you need more, where you have to ask again, where maybe you will find out that you have to do a baseline study to gather specific information that you would need to write a good project plan. So which points are clear, which are unclear? Where do you have missing information? Who's already involved in the project? If you've started already, or if you started something similar, if somebody else has worked in the area, who is already involved and who's already a part of the project, of the process? What did already happen? Maybe it's a project that is going to be based on another project that has happened already. Maybe there has been another initiative working in this field. Maybe something small has already happened. So just try to really understand what has happened, who has been part of it, and if you can base your work, if you can base your plans upon that. And which strengths and weaknesses should be considered. So those are questions that always go into project planning, but just to make sure that you have them at the front of your mind as well. what are the strengths of your organization, of your team, of yourself, etc., of the situation, like why are you the perfect partner to implement this project, but also are there any weaknesses, anything happened in the past that makes you maybe vulnerable or makes the participants vulnerable, etc. Just thinking about all those eventualities to make sure that you gather all the information you need to write a comprehensive, a good project plan that will then again help you in the future to plan better. So now we come to the last part of the presentation. What's the difference between a project plan and a proposal? I hope everything is working because Zoom is showing me some weird things. So maybe you can just quickly write into the chat box if you can still hear and see me, because to me it looks like I got kicked out, but I'm not sure. Okay. I hope it still works. I'll just keep talking. Otherwise, you have to write into the chat box. I don't know what's happening. Zoom is acting up a bit for me. So the difference between a project plan and a proposal, and I've already seen one of the questions here that I had mentioned a project plan is not needed to write a proposal, but then afterwards I said it is needed. You don't, if you want to write a proposal, you do not need a project plan. Usually donors will not ask you, show me your project plan. But if you want to go about this professionally, and you are working with several people within your own organization, it usually is extremely helpful to have a project plan. Also, if you do want to write a proposal and you don't have a project plan, you have a lot of work to do because you have to gather all this information. Like you saw before, many of the parts are very similar. So you have to go back and gather all the information, start at zero. But if you do have a project plan that you have already used in the past, to present to your own organization, or to just kind of figure out for yourself what your project is supposed to look like. If you do have all that information already, then it's so much easier to write a proposal because you can reuse many parts of it. You can base your entire proposal writing process on it. And you also make sure that you as a fundraiser are completely on the same page as the project managers who probably had much more input into the project plan. So that's a little bit tricky. You don't necessarily need a project plan, but writing a proposal without one is much more work. And especially if you're working with several people, if you're not a one-man show, but if you are a one-woman show, but if you have a team, having a project plan that you can work from is extremely helpful and is going to help you as a fundraiser if you want to write a project proposal. Now we're getting to the question, what is the difference between a project plan and a project proposal? Because I kept saying how similar they are. And yes, they are very similar, but there's a couple of important differences that you should keep in mind. So you should not, and you cannot probably take your project plan and just send it off as a proposal, even if the parts are very similar, but they're not exactly the same. And now we will talk in a little bit more detail about the differences between a project plan and a proposal, and which part you should focus on in the project plan and which parts you should focus on in the project proposal, because that is very important. So the first thing, and I think I've mentioned that before, is the audience. The audience is different if you write. Sorry, some background noise. Maybe it's the Philanthropia account, I think, that is not on mute. Okay. Audience is different. Now the project plan, like I said, is for an internal audience, and the proposal usually is for an external audience. So that means a project plan, usually you write for either yourself, your own organization, your teammates, people that you directly work with, and where you want to present a project to them, to an audience within your own organization. So nobody outside. proposal is for an external audience. So for people who don't know your organization yet, who maybe don't even really understand the issue that you're working on in much detail. So keeping that in mind is important, because it determines which parts of the proposal you should focus on most. Because just imagine, if you work in your organization, you probably have a lot of detailed knowledge about the issues that you work on. So you probably exactly know the community you work with, you know their issues, you know why things are a specific problem. And sometimes you work on issues that are not so clear. Obviously, if there's not enough food, people will suffer from hunger. Well, that's like there's a problem, there's something that results from that, and there's a solution to it. But other problems are caused by much more complex backgrounds, complex problem situations. And if you work within your own organization, you know them in detail. So when you write a project plan, you don't have to go back and explain all the ways that, for example, poverty affects gender equality, education, nutrition, etc., because you know that, and probably everybody working in your own organization knows that. But when you send the proposal to an external audience, they might not know that. So you have to put yourself in the shoes of a donor that reads about a specific problem, maybe for the first time, or of a specific connection between two issues, maybe for the first time. So you have to explain a little bit more the background. So that means you have to focus more of your proposal on, explaining the background, explaining why your issue is so important. We'll have another slide about that later. But just so that you already know, there's the big difference in the audience, because one audience, your internal audience, they do know what the issues are that you work on. The external audience might not know all of that. And it's, I think always when writing proposals, writing all of these documents, it's extremely helpful if you just try to put yourself into the donor's shoes. What are things that you might know? What are things that you might not know? So we always recommend, before you send out a proposal or any document, just to let somebody proofread it that is not from your own organization. Because again, you will know all those things. For you, they will be 100% clear, but they need to be clear for an outsider. So often it's a good idea to have an outsider proofread to see if they really understand everything, if everything is clear, or if you've left something out. Because some things for you are are just crystal clear, and for somebody else they won't be. It's just one example where in a proposal that I wrote, where I made that was the proposal, but it was the same in the project plan. It was in both of those, and I made the mistake of not adjusting in this case. It was in the budget, actually. I was working for an NGO in South America. We developed a proposal for a reforestation project. And the village was actually at a river. So there was no road, and transportation had to be on the river. And obviously, everybody in the NGO knew we had to get the fertilizer in a town that was upriver, and we had to get the seeds for the trees in a town that was downriver. So it was clear for everybody, like the cost to transport the fertilizer will be much lower because it's downriver than the cost to transport the seeds, which is upriver, because they needed much more petrol to actually drive up the river. And everybody, it was just clear. Yeah, obviously, it's logical. So I didn't explain it in the proposal, and that's when they got back to me and they said, "Why is there such a huge difference in transportation costs?" And then I just realized, oh my God, I work here every day, so this is clear to me that this village is upriver, this village is downriver, but nobody else will know this. So just trying to put yourself into the donor's shoes and thinking with the mind of someone who doesn't have all this detailed knowledge is really helpful here. So when you see the difference between the project plan and the proposal, is the proposal needs that extra info. The proposal needs that extra layer of context that might not be necessary for your own organization. The purpose, closely connected to that, the purpose of those two documents is a bit different. So a project plan will help you during the implementation of a project, and it will help you to know who is doing what. So it's like a management document. And a proposal is the basis for a funding decision by the donor. So it's the document that you send out for them to decide to give you money or not. So again, this means that you should focus on different aspects. When you think about what a proposal should do, is it should create some kind of emotion. It should make somebody feel something. But a project plan doesn't necessarily have to do that. No, a project plan needs to tell you what you have to do, and you don't have to feel compassionate about that, or you don't have to feel great about that. Obviously, it's always good if you feel great about your own work, but that doesn't need to be explained in that management document. For the proposal, though, it's a little bit different. Obviously, they are both technical documents, and a proposal doesn't need to be full of emotion. But when you use some tools of storytelling, etc., it's always helpful to kind of to trigger some kind of emotion in the reader, because that is when people remember better, that is when people feel a connection, and you do have to convince them to fund your project. So that is why also here it's another argument for focusing more on the why than on the how. Obviously, in a proposal, you also have to explain how you want to achieve something. But if the donors don't understand the necessity and the direness of the issue that you want to solve, then it doesn't matter how well you explain what you want to do, you will not get the money. So that's why it's important to really focus on this aspect of why. What's the justification for your project? What's the background? How does this also go together with what the donor wants to achieve, with their mission statement, etc.? What is the reason that the donor should support you? Focusing more on that. When you just write like an internal document to explain to your peers, to your co-workers what needs to be done, that part is not so important. It needs to be covered, but it doesn't need so much attention. It doesn't need so much focus, I would say. And then obviously, again, connected to that, the tone. Both are obviously formal documents. Like I said, when you write a project plan, that's a formal document that will go into the institutional memory of your organization. It's going to be like a couple of pages that will be passed around, etc. Proposal, the same. It's a technical document. It's a document, an official document that you send out. It should be formal. It should look nice. It should be addressing everybody with proper tone, proper words, etc. But in general, a project plan will be more technical. Because of this difference that we just talked about, a good proposal should inspire also emotions. And they're more, or they should be more than just a collection of facts. But when you write for your own team and try to explain to them exactly what they're supposed to do, who is supposed to do what, which tasks you need to implement, etc., that is more technical, and that doesn't need emotion. It doesn't need to inspire passion, etc. Those are tasks. Those are action points that need to be done, need to be implemented. And the proposal should be a bit more than that if possible, because if you just write down, list out facts, in today's world of competition, today's world of great proposals everywhere, with that, you're probably not going to win. You need to think about elements of storytelling, ways to make your proposal more enticing, more interesting, because a donor will read maybe 100 proposals, maybe they receive 1,000 proposals. So you kind of need to shine. You need to be different. Your proposal needs to be special in some way, not special like flashy crazy, but using the tools that you have, using the things that you can do to make it just a little bit different and a little bit to shine out of the pile and to be chosen. So that's why the tone is different. In the project plan, it should be more technical, and in the project proposal, you should think about how you can maybe inspire emotion, some kind of emotion, not pity, but positive emotions if possible, and the desire to help, understanding for the issue that you want to address, and just add this extra layer of more information, more passion, etc. And then lastly, the big difference is the message. I've mentioned this a little bit before. That's why you should focus on those areas of the document a little bit more. It's basically the how versus the why. So in the project plan, the thing that you should focus on or have to focus on, obviously, is the how. How is this project going to be implemented? How much money do you need for it? How's the timeline, etc.? What are the action steps that need to be taken for this project to be successful? In the proposal, you focus more on the why, on the justification, on the why does this project fit perfectly within the donor's agenda? Why should they fund you on this issue? Because that is the question that they have to answer for themselves. If they have further technical questions after that, obviously your proposal should answer all those questions. Your proposal should be clear about how you want to go about things. But in a project plan, your colleague needs to know exactly how many stones they have to buy for this building. In a project proposal, maybe that information is too detailed, because you need a number in the budget, etc., but it doesn't have to be in the text. To be able to implement or to do tasks, your staff, your teammates, etc., need to know exactly spelled out what they need to do. A donor doesn't always have to know all this detailed information because it's just going to be too much. They want to read a proposal that is not 100 pages long. They want something crisp. They want to understand what you do, but not be inundated with too much detail. So that is why a lot of the detailed information about the how can be taken out, but the proposal should focus more on the why. And again, we've stressed this before. You probably don't have to explain to your own team exactly why you want to or have to implement this project, because they do know that. That's why they work with you. That's the area that they work in, etc. But the donor needs to understand that, because that's the first question they ask themselves. And another thing that donors really do need to know is why they should support your project. Why does your project fit perfectly within their strategy? Why does their project help to achieve their mission statement, etc.? So that is what a proposal should focus on a little bit more. So that's the main difference in message as well, that you have between a project plan and a project proposal. And now, finally, how does the project plan help with the proposal? Because it does, and I've mentioned that before. So obviously you have, if you write a good project plan with all the sections covered, then you have a lot of the information already that you need for a project proposal. It has the same structure. In the project proposal, you cover the same basis. No, where do you want to implement what and why and with whom and what's the timeline, what's the budget? You have the same structure, the same sections that you cover. So again, you can't copy one-on-one. You have to adjust. You have to focus on different sections. But basically, it's the same information, and you don't have to go back to the field and do your research again. So you can reuse that information that you've already gathered for your project plan and put it in your project proposal. And especially if you're a fundraiser and you have a team of project managers, this way you can also make sure that you include them in the planning, you include them in the writing, and that you have the correct information and you don't have to kind of guess what they would need. So it's a great basis. When you have a good project plan, you can just start off from that and write a lot of the proposal with that plan. And if there are parts missing, you already know which information is missing. because you've done, you've looked into this, and if you decide to actually write a project proposal, and there's some background information missing, etc., you will know. And additionally, and I've mentioned that in the beginning, the information from the project plan about budget, about all these things, will give you the necessary information to feed into your strategy development and into your donor research. Because as long as you don't know what you're looking for, you will not find it. Because if you don't have a goal, if you don't know what you need, then how can you find it? It's not possible. So it gives you information on what you need, and that will actually help you to find the perfect donor fit that will be willing to support you. Yeah, so with this, we come to the end of the prepared presentation. We still have time for questions, but I also want to give you a little bit more information on some of the courses that we offer, because we do have an entire online course about writing a project plan, which covers similar parts that we've talked about today, but in much more detail. And usually we sell that one for $50. And we do have an amazing ebook about the project proposal. It's more than 200 pages with many sample proposals that you can learn from, that were successful and others have written, that you can read and see and get inspiration from. We have a proposal template in there, a list of funding opportunities for COVID-19 measures, and a checklist. And all of this package also we sell together for $25, which is already in itself an amazing price, because so much work went into this book, alone, that has combined all this information. You can see an excerpt of the table of contents here. But so usually, obviously, 25 plus 50 would be 75. But today, because you took part in this webinar and we know that you're interested in these topics, we want to offer this combined package. So the webinar and the online course and the ebook, which is going to be extremely helpful, for only $40 for you. So I'm sure my team will be posting the link probably right now, or in a bit, into the chat box. Otherwise, you will also get the link to this offer, which is only valid for a couple of days, in the follow-up email with the presentation. So if you can, I recommend you take advantage of this offer, because it will give you a lot more information about how to develop the project plan, but also what parts are important for the proposal, etc., how you can reuse parts, and how to structure it, etc. There's so much information in this book alone that it's really worth it. We also have many other online courses available on the platform philanthropia.org. For example, a course on donor research, on developing a fundraising strategy, how to raise funds from European foundations, but also from USAID, from Gulf donors, etc. And we also have a couple of free courses, like this one at the bottom, how to find 50 donors in 10 minutes, about just a quick introduction to donor research. So go and check out philanthropia.org, please, if you haven't done so already, and see what you can take advantage of, because we also offer a 30% coupon for you for any of those courses, if you're interested. So with the coupon code PFN users, you can get 30% off on any of the courses that we have on our website. And yeah, again, so if you want to learn more about one of those topics, I really recommend you take advantage of that offer. We do have regular webinars, and I'd love to see you again in one of those. The next one is probably going to be in mid-August. Yeah, make sure that you're signed up for our list. You probably are, because you've signed up for this webinar. But we're also obviously on Facebook, LinkedIn. You can follow us on all those platforms to make sure that you don't miss any of our future webinars and any of our future offers. Thank you very much for attending. And yeah, we still have time for questions, and I think there are a couple of questions that we can go through now. I will see if this works. I still see the questions here. Okay, I hope. So I see the first comment again about me being too fast. I tried. It's not so easy for me because I tend to talk very quick, but I'll try to talk slower in the future as well. I tried today. Maybe you've noticed. We don't have a sample project plan at the moment, but we do work on like a template. And if you want to use, or if you want to work with a template for the proposal, a project proposal, you can also obviously get it with the book. We have a full proposal template that you can get there. Obviously, if you don't want to get the double deal, you can also get the book by itself. It's a great offer because it has so much information, all these templates, samples, etc., the checklist, that's really helpful and beneficial. So then there's a question. I tried to already address that in the talking, but I'll talk about it again. You said a project plan is not needed to write a proposal. But on the other hand, you said it's the basis for a successful proposal. Please clarify. Yes, I meant that you do not need a project plan. You can also start with a proposal, but then you have more work to do because all the information that you need to write a successful proposal, you also need for the project plan. So you can kind of double use it. And then you have two things. Then you have a document for your internal team that will help you to really successfully implement the project. That will be a guideline, a roadmap for your organization internally, and you have all this information that you can use for the proposal. So we recommend to write project plans, even if it's just a small project that focuses more on the how, that really breaks down action points, etc. And then that's going to be really, really helpful. Then we have a question about the difference between a project plan and a fundraising strategy. So the project plan is basically could be part of the business plan, if you think of it in those words. So a business plan for an NGO would be describing the projects, the programs, the activities that you want to implement. It will talk about your office space, your staff, etc. So it's describing your operations. And part of that obviously would be a project plan, because under your if you have several different projects, you will have different project plans describing exactly what you want to do. And you will be describing in detail how you want to go about this, how you're going to implement those things. The fundraising strategy is different than the business strategy, the business plan, because it talks about how you want to get the funds for that. So we have we have an online course about the fundraising strategy, which I think is very helpful and interesting as well, where we talk in more detail about this. But to develop a fundraising strategy, you need to understand what have you done in the past in your fundraising, what was successful, what was not so successful, where do you want to go? And that's why you need the project plan, because you need some numbers. You need to know how much money for what you need to raise, no? And then how to get there. So which fundraising instruments you want to use. Do you want to apply for grants? Do you want to use crowdfunding? Do you want to use peer-to-peer fundraising? Whatever it might be, you define your instruments, you define your methodologies, and then with that, you work on an action plan where people get assigned responsibilities. So it's the difference. It's a little bit similar to the difference between a project plan and a proposal, because the business plan describes what you want to do with your organization, and the fundraising strategy describes how you want to get the funds for that, how you want to get the money. So those are the two main differences there. And it's really helpful to have a fundraising strategy, because it will keep you from falling into funding gaps, for example, because you will have a mid to long term planning for where to apply, how to apply, what to apply for, etc. It will free a lot of your mind space, because you don't have to constantly think about raising funds, getting fundraising. And it will tell your staff, your team, or yourself exactly what you have to do. Make sure you don't miss any opportunities anymore, etc. It will just give you direction. Then we have a question about the difference between the background and justification. It's very similar. Project background and the justification is are two words that describe often the same thing. I would say maybe the little difference could be like a project background. It's just a description of the situation in the community that you want to work in. You can use data, you can use case studies, and the justification goes one step further and kind of puts a spin on that information, explaining why your project is necessary. So it gives the justification why you want to do your work. If everything is perfect, if there's no issues in the community, then there's no justification to do project work there. No. So you describe the issue that you want to work with and then kind of formulate that into the reason of why your project is necessary. So the justification maybe has a little bit more of a spin towards the explaining side, but in general, I would say they're very much similar. Okay, thank you. I've been trying to train myself to talk slower my entire life. That's an ongoing issue for me, but I will keep working on it. Thank you. You should listen to me in German. I'm even faster then. Then I will just see if I can find maybe a couple of more questions in the comment box. This one, I don't know if I can see all here because there are many comments. So if you have important questions, you can put them in the I think it's called I have the German version, so it says F&A, which is questions and answers. So it's probably Q&A for you. So if you have more questions. Okay, there's a couple of more that just popped up. I didn't see them before. There's one question. I'm not sure if I understand correctly, if I have a speaker cost for a proposal plan and project template. If you're interested in running a training with us, you can just get in touch at info@philanthropia.org and we can discuss further if that's what you mean. I'm not 100% sure if I understand correctly. Then there's a couple of questions that are very technical, how to get the deliverables of the project before or by the deadline. Usually it's, if I understand correctly here, it's by the deadline. If it's before, it's better. It's just always important that if you have issues, if you see early on in your project or while implementing your project that there will be issues with reaching those targets, those deliverables that you've set for yourself, that you communicate that clearly with the donors. So if you think there might be issues and problems with actually achieving those goals, then just communicate that quickly and very early on. There's just a couple of questions that I see here in the chat box. There's one question that we tend to get every time, and I really understand and I really feel for it, that from Nadja, that donors prefer to fund those who have done work in the past. It's an issue. We do have webinars and like a free webinar exactly about this, how to fundraise when your NGO is brand new. We also have a course that has a little bit more information because there's a couple of tricks to deal with that. And also there are many donors that do fund new NGOs. You just have to dig a little bit deeper in your donor research. So when you try to find those that really do want to work with new and grassroots NGOs, that you can find them. One thing that you can do is, for example, to partner with other NGOs in the beginning that have a little bit more experience. Then you can still implement your projects and your programs, but you can kind of apply under an umbrella with other organizations. Donors also tend to like that. And also when you start to apply for small grants, for example, embassies have great projects, programs where you can apply for a small grant and up to 10,000 sometimes, and then just kind of ease into working with donors, and then you will be, then you at least you have a reference, you have something small that you can base your future work on. We do not offer services for proposal writing because we believe that it's always better to support NGOs, also small NGOs, in developing their own capacity. But again, we do have online trainings about proposal writing, etc. Also, if you work for a bigger NGO and you're maybe interested, or you're in contact with an INGO, you have a donor, etc., and you feel like this training is useful for you, we always love it if you recommend us, and maybe we can organize something bigger. So if you have any idea for someone who would be interested in organizing a bigger training, etc., addressing a bigger group, we would always be up for that. So if you have any ideas, any addresses, recommendations, please get in touch at info@philanthropia.org. How many pages must the proposal be? This is different. If they tell you 10 pages, then 10 pages. If they tell you 5, then 5. If they tell you nothing, then as many pages as it needs, but not more. I always try to keep it short. More is not better. Donors are in stress, donors are under pressure, so they want to read as little as possible to understand your project. Obviously, don't leave anything out, but just put whatever is needed. So if you want to, you can also check out our YouTube channel. We have recorded the past webinars. We have some interesting topics there. So you can also watch those videos if they're interested. If they're interesting, sorry, if you are interested and the videos are interesting. So, okay, I hope I caught most of the questions. Thank you very much for attending and being part of this. And again, I'm sorry for the 3-week delay that we had to put in, but I hope to see many of you again in 2 weeks, and it's 3 weeks, like in the middle of what. I'm confused. In a month, middle of August, we'll have the next webinar, and we will, hopefully see many of you there. And I hope to hear from you. We will put the link to the YouTube channel in the follow-up email as well, and then we can make sure, or you can make sure that you click on it and check it out. Thank you very much, and see you next time. Bye bye.